Welcome back to 250 Chat on Prime TV. Today we are at Four Blooms in Kimihurura, right below Mamba. And we are very thankful for them for hosting us. You should check them out. They have amazing burgers and hot dogs. And today's topic is mental illness. We are going to talk about mental illness in the Rwandan society, how it is talked about, how it's still taboo, even though right now there's awareness being raised, and also mental illness in men, how they talk about their feelings, what they're going through. So I'll give the floor to my crew. What do you think of mental illness in the Rwandan society?
So you said mental illness, and I feel like we should also talk about it as a whole, as mental health, before we get into mental illness. And one thing that I wanted us to really talk about is why people don't open up about it. Like, why there's still that stigma of I can't come out and say this. Like, why is it not okay? Why is it considered not okay or not a cool thing or whatever it is not? Why is it that?
So I think for me, it's because, from my experience, it's because not a lot of people have experience dealing with it, one. Also, the people who had, when they heard about it, it's like, oh, there's a person with mental health issues in your family. This person is mad. People just attribute it to be mad. And that's not madness. Like, madness is like an whole other extreme to this thing. So I feel like education is the issue. People need to be educated. They need to know that as human beings, our brains are like engines. You know, the engine needs to be fueled. It goes bad, and then you gotta repair it. You gotta go to the auto mechanic. The mind is like that, and so everybody has different experiences, and things can happen to you. And when these things happen, it doesn't mean that you're mad. It means that you're just having issues that can be dealt with. So that education, I think, is important for people to now accept that. Okay, yeah, I'm suffering from a mental health issue or something of this sort. I don't know, like mental health and illnesses, all these issues concerning them are very touchy subjects in our society. But it's important to know that everyone goes through stuff. And if you're going through stuff and it's a bit difficult for you, or you've recognized that you're having certain issues mentally, please seek help. There's nothing embarrassing about it, because at the end of the day, it's about your health.
Even in Kinyarwanda, we do not really have a lot of words to express mental illness or mental health issues. The moment someone acts a certain way or shows certain symptoms, the easiest thing to go with is yasas. She has become mad, or he has become mad.
Mental health should not be a taboo in Rwanda. We should talk more about it. We should break it down. We shouldn't talk about it as a broad subject.
There's a lot of stigma attached to that. I have seen it with the people close to me, and even in my own family, cases where you have someone who is diagnosed, for example, with clinical depression, and he has an episode where he has to be interned at KHS, and the only thing people are willing to talk about is yarwaye iki, oh, she's sick. What is she suffering from? Oh, she has issues. What kind of issues? You don't know. What is she suffering? What's the diagnosis? They don't even ask. They don't want to have that kind of conversation. So there's a lot of stigma attached to it. The other thing is, in our culture, especially in Rwanda, we tend to, there's this thing about manning up, where we believe that if we show vulnerability, if we show that we are not as strong as we're supposed to be, then there's something wrong with us. We're letting people down. We're there's something wrong with us and something missing. And so it's even in some of our proverbs, like Marira y'umugabo atemba ajya mu nda. Like, if a man cries, the tears don't have to come out on the outside. They have to go, down to the stomach. Yeah. So all this, you see that people will be dealing with things, but they do not really have an avenue where they can express them. They can, talk about them. And I'm talking like mental illness and also mental health issues in general. Like, personally, one of the reasons why at a certain point in my life I did not want to talk about it or to express it, it was like a whole slew of all those issues. I just realized it later on, when I opened up to my psychiatrist, and she helped me go through with it. But it was that I used to think, oh, I have a lot of issues, yes, but why would I burden other people? They have their own things they're dealing with, you know. Or it could be about, if I let this person see me this way, and I don't like the person I am right now, in fact I hate the person I am right now, what will happen if I let any other person who is close to me, who I want in my life, see me the way I see myself? Will they still stay, you know? And so those kinds of thoughts are some of the reasons why people bottle things up. But it's a wrong thing to do, because at one point it's gonna burst. If you don't have like an avenue like where you can release all that tension and all those like dark thoughts, the end result is worse than not talking about it at all. Find people you trust, find people you can confide in, find that help that you need. Once again, if you feel like you need professional help, there are a few places I can recommend. You could go to Lighthouse Rwanda, you could go to Solid Minds, or the Sana Initiative. Those are places you can look for more information online on the internet.
The more you keep this inside, the worse the mental health issue will become. And sometimes it even gets to a full-blown stage where you have to be committed at some point. But if you had just opened up, it's not easy, but opened up to someone about how you're feeling, it would have been easier to diagnose you and to give you help. Yeah.
I think that
Sorry. And also, sometimes the reason people don't open up because you actually don't even know how to open up. Yeah. Like you're feeling a certain way, but putting it in words is just impossible. Like you don't even know where to start from because you can't quite explain it. So you're like, instead of looking confused to this other person, let me just hold it in. Yeah.
But also understanding, I think sometimes with, especially with the younger generation, one of the issues that I feel like we're very quick to say, oh, the society does not allow us to, like, we look at all the barriers the society provides, but we don't understand our society. Part of it is the reason to why your parents tell you this is a white person's thing is some of it is like ignorance, no, but sometimes it's actually just because of history. Like our parents have had to go through so many things that they didn't have the luxury of actually saying I'm going to open up and talk about what happened to me or how I feel about it. So for them, when they hear your parent has been a refugee, they've experienced they've survived killings how many times, and then they hear you talking about how I feel like this, it's like, man up, like suck it up, because it's just life. It just is the way it is. And part of what we can't deny is the fact that our societies for so long have gone through so many problems that it's part of it. We know that we don't have that luxury because we're not even sure if tomorrow we're going to live. So part of the reasons to why we had to suck it up sometimes was because that was the only way of survival, right? So, but being able to understand that things have changed and also not feeling guilty, right? It's like you feel guilty because I'm depressed because this thing happened, and then you go to your parent, they're like, well, I lost my parents when I was 12 because they were killed by this and this and this. We can't compare, right? So it's understanding where our society is coming from, and not thinking or not attributing some sort of like ill intention, and then also understanding that sometimes the reason to why they say just keep it in is because they are not sure that if they actually open up that they'll be able to bring themselves back, right? And that's the thing about everybody, right? It's like they're like, oh, tell me how you feel. If I was to say it, I'm not sure if I would survive just that, right? But that takes time. It takes also understanding and being able to see that a lot of people cope up with things differently, and that's why you'll find, I mean, people talk about like, oh, Rwandans, like, why do you feel sometimes like, why do you feel people drink so much? It's like, hey, I'm always like, okay, my G, drink. That's all on you. But why would anybody drink from Monday to Sunday and they always want to be drunk? We can easily say it's their choice, or there's something that they're running away from, right? There's something that they're running away from. And being able to say, oh, it's mental illness or not, it's like, no. Us as Rwandans, we drink. What's behind it? What's behind it is there's things that we're running away from, and we need that high to help us, just deal with that.
So back to the thing about what our parents went through and the reasons why they don't want to, be open about these mental health issues. I agree completely with you, but thing is, another part I feel like we should look at it is from the aspect of there are loads of traditions, for instance, that we have. And based off of where we live now in life, we try to unlearn certain things. You have to unlearn certain things. It's just what it is. And times are changing. So I feel like for our relationships even to be better with our children, we need to also be vulnerable. Like, there are loads of things now you realize that, if your parents had changed this or had been this, your life would probably, because parents are the ones that mess you up the most. Like, it's not even boyfriends or girlfriends. Parents mess you up the most. So if they, and I get it's not their fault, because even their parents were even worse, like in terms of admitting stuff. So I feel like for us to have a better relationship with our children, I feel like we need to be open about this thing and unlearn, we understand, unlearn, so take the good part and then keep the bad part away. I don't know, that's my opinion.
Yeah, and also if we are encouraging people to open up and start speaking, we also have to be encouraging. We have to also understand, because the biggest misconception is that you are ill because of something that happened to you. Yes, there are problems, and I think that's why parents compare their issues to what's going on. Like, they give you everything, you go and study abroad, you have everything. They were walking to school and all the hurdles they had to go through, but you have everything, but you still get depressed, you still get anxiety and all these issues they cannot understand. Because sometimes you tell someone, I feel sad or I'm feeling down, and you spend a week or two without doing anything, literally, and they won't understand. So they'll say, you have everything and I'm poor, or I'm in survival mode. I don't understand how like, what do you mean you're just sad? Like, they consider it a luxury. So if we move away from the fact that mental illness is caused by problems, like physical problems that we see, because it's also there are hormonal imbalances. People have different illnesses, and people are born with depression, or they develop it in when they are teenagers. Understanding this as a whole, understanding also that even mental health practices, for example, like self-care, although it's packaged as a luxury, as going to the spa and getting massages and going for vacations, simple things as exercising, eating healthy, they're still seen as a luxury. Like, you can afford to do that. So if we break it down exactly and understand on the whole, and also be open, let someone, if we're telling people to open up but we're not ready to listen, because every day I cannot come to you and say, I'm down. Tomorrow I come to you, I'm down. One day you're going to tell me, so when is this good? Do you have a solution? Because we are very solution oriented. It's also hard. And I understand that it's also a burden to put on someone. So, yeah.
I've learned so much. I think I need to actually take mental health more seriously, and I need to read on it. I feel as if I need to be more educated on it.
One of the issues that I have with the talk on mental health and mental illness is a lot of people just romanticize it. A lot of people make it this, if you're here, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. It's nobody who's depressed is going to come to you and say, hey, you know what, I'm depressed, right? And that's the thing that I hate sometimes, is that we make it this very romantic and embellished, and the reality is it's messy. It's very messy. It's that friend that one day they are there, the next day they are not around. And part of it is also requires that there's also that emotions that you also have. It's like, no, you're inconsistent, you're not a friend, and I'm going to cancel you out, I'm going to do this and this and this. Or even the people who do things that you think are crazy, right? It takes so far more than just being knowledgeable. It takes a certain attitude that I feel like very few people have, and that is patience. Because I'll tell you, well, first of all, I think personally, it's a personal opinion, I think everybody has a level of mental illness. If you're living in this world, if you are just alert, there's something that is not going to be fine with you. And I think that's one thing that we have to know. Now, there are extremes, right? And some of the things, like when you deal with the extremes, for me, I've dealt with a friend who has like a schizophrenia, and part of it is like I had to learn how to just be still, and sometimes they'll say things and my reaction was like, man, I'll kick you, like I'll just do, like my first reaction was like, do that one more time, But then I had to remind myself, like, no, this person is not in the right state of mind.
Did you know they were sick?
Yeah, I know. I was taking them to the hospital. But it doesn't take away the fact that I also felt like, I feel like you're disrespecting me, you're doing whatever.
Yes.
So, but it requires a certain level of like, okay, you know what? I understand intellectually and all of that. And part of it is also being like, I'm patient enough. And patience is, it's a long suffering. It's not this nice, I'm just patient. Nah, it's like, crazy.
I think you've brought up a good topic that I wanted to just highlight on. Maybe anyone can actually highlight on this. How should a friend of maybe someone who has mental illness, let's say you have mental illness and I'm your friend, how should I go about it? Because you find that depending on their mental illness, friendships can be estranged. Like they can now take a beating. So how, apart from patience, what are the other ways in which someone can actually help this person, this friend of theirs, or at least be there for them? What are the ways? What are the tricks, tips?
So he said it, being there, being patient, being still, not looking... not wanting to offer solutions, because you might want to say, oh, I read this, if you do this and this. Being patient means that you do not expect that a solution, that person to get out of it and, be whole again. Yes, you have that hope, but also not pushing them, because people can feel it, even if you're not saying it. You can feel it that someone is a little bit impatient or expects you to just snap out of it. So before I maybe let me see. As someone who has gone through depression, there are moments where you're very inconsistent. Today we're here, we're laughing, and then the next we make plans for tomorrow, and tomorrow I'm just unable to wake up, and I'll cancel. Yeah. So if that happens many times, of course you're going to get impatient as a friend. You're going to say, I'm inconsistent, I don't want to spend time with you. But understanding and reading about it and being in that space and knowing someone, I don't think there's anything that would go beyond patience and being helpful. I've also been on the other end where I'm friends and family members to people who have different mental illnesses. So I think the presence, because presence is such a great gift. Working with someone, don't offer solution, do not offer advice. It kills, because when you're given advice, you feel like you're nothing, because you cannot accomplish what they're telling you. So just be there and also take care of yourself. Get someone you rely on, because if I'm there and you're always my support, I'm not giving you what you deserve. You also need someone who's going to give that help to you.
For me too, I agree with everything she said. The only few things I'll add is some people sometimes have the tendency to be like, oh yeah, but I went through this, I went through that, I didn't go through depression, so why is it that it's just this thing that you went through that is making you in this state? That is a horrible thing to do, because you do not get to decide how a person feels their pain and what effect it has on them. So just being there, and being there is not just even being present. If you know that there are daily tasks that they need to do, that they're not able to, get in there, help them go to the market, do stuff. But again, do not offer advice. That thing is a trigger. It's such a trigger. And while it also makes the person feel like, it can also make them even back away from you more. Now, the third thing is also being able to make the hard call, even if this will affect your friendship. So there's certain people that are suffering from mental health issues that don't know how bad it is, are too scared to talk about it, and maybe it's even getting to a very bad phase, say like schizophrenia. And maybe because you're knowledgeable, you can recognize the signs. If you need to call a family member or to get them help, do that, because at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, it's not on you, but you will not feel good if you, as a friend. So I feel like those things are very important.
The other thing, first of all, I totally agree that pain comparison is something, it's a trap that we tend to fall into very, very much. Especially, okay, so everything comes back to Rwanda. We have had a very tough history, right? Yeah. And man, the stories people have, right? So the moment you try to open up or to share, to talk about something that is hard for you, that you're having a hard time dealing with, that is making you feel like you're going through hell, And then the person is like, but hey, listen, so Ronaka, this person, she had to deal with this and this and this, but you don't see her being like that. You don't see her not waking up in the morning to go to work. Pain is personally felt, and acknowledging that does not deny the other person's pain. The fact that you have gone through some things that were harder, if you look at it or try to compare, than what I'm going through, and have had your own way to deal with it, that's all well and good. The fact that I'm having a hard time dealing with it does not deny what you've went through. So that's something that we need to understand.
Doesn't make you weak, by the way.
Exactly, that too.
Do not judge people. Do not compare pain, because pain is different. The fact that you went through something doesn't mean that somebody else should be able to go through the same thing easily.
And the other thing is, educate yourself. When you talk about mental illnesses, there are mental illnesses that people have for life. Right? When you talk about things like bipolar disorder, that is not something.
Mine, panic disorder. And people don't even know about this. People don't even understand how it even happens, but I mean, continue.
Exactly. So my point is, sometimes we tend to see things and we don't really understand the gravity or the intensity of the situation. So we're like, oh okay, so she needs me to be there. I'm going to be there. I'm going to, let her know that we're together. And then, there is a pattern that keeps repeating. Today we're together, we're having fun, we're like, I'm on top of my world, like I'm so energetic and everything, and tomorrow I just want to die. And then you're there, you're offering comfort, you're helping out, but then after 2-3 months you get tired. Partly because you do not understand that this is not something that is gonna end within a short period of time, because you did not educate yourself upon it. So what I would say is, understand the kind of issue that your friend is going through, the kind of illness they're dealing with, and make an effort to learn all you can about it in order for you to understand how best to be there for them.
Okay, so I want to really say something about the way we kept on saying pain is, you shouldn't compare pain or whatever. Sometimes you actually do that to yourself. Like you compare your own pain. For example, and this is something that I used to do, and I learned it from myself. Like I used to do, like something would happen, like when I really went through a rough patch, and so even every other time I felt that way, I would tell myself, but you've been through worse. Like, what is this to you? Like you can get through this. But the fact that someone has lost their hand, or they have had a fracture in their hand, and you have had yours in the finger, doesn't mean that you're not going to feel it. No, actually, no one can even tell you, don't feel pain. The pain is still going to be there whether you acknowledge it or not. So sometimes it's you. It begins with you. So sometimes it's your own self without even it being anybody else. And then another thing I wanted to say is some of these things, and maybe this is a conversation for another day. Like I agree with what you said. Everyone, we have there's levels to this. Yeah, we all have a percentage of how we're dealing with mental illness, and one of the ways we were talking about support and how you're going to support that person. Honestly, sometimes having someone who was close to me who went through that, it was easier not to support. Let me explain this. It was easier not to support because you are not sure if you're even going to add on to that problem. Even talking to them is just scaring you. You're like, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know if it's going to matter. I don't know how to help them. So I'd rather just go on the side, pray for them, wish them well.
If you realize that you cannot be there for them, it's also okay, because it's very difficult to deal with someone who has that issue.
Then there's also what you guys have been saying, like reading about it a lot. And that is something that I really do, especially with like child psychology. Because these things, they come from a place. Like you don't just wake up one morning and you're battling all of these things. It comes from somewhere, and most of it is from the child, from our childhood. It all stems from that. And as a mother, one of the things that I really pay close attention to is how is mental health with my child. Is mental health, and reading about it. The other day I even learned that kids actually also have a love language. I was like, what? And then I started noticing, and I would notice these things in my son. Like I started noticing some things, like there's a certain way he prefers to be spoken to or whatever, to be treated. So yeah, it starts from even educating yourself and just knowing like how you can help these people.
I want to quickly just add something. So as someone who's had mental health issues that I manage, and who had a mother who had like really, really bad mental health issues from like the age of 12, I'm gonna say this: it's not easy, by the way. And if as a friend you can't deal, it's okay. Like it's because it's a huge commitment. Let's be honest. And if you're not able to, it's okay if you cannot. I feel like people should know this, because it's a huge commitment and it can overwhelm you like in no way. And please do not commit to something that you're not capable of dealing with. Like, I just want people to know this.
And part of it, I think, is it's understanding just the messiness of all of these things.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like sometimes we make educating ourselves the final thing. But for me, my thing is, you can know anything in the world until it happens. Like, I'll tell you, you will know everything until when it happens to you. And then you're like, you tell yourself, you're like, but I know better, and I know this is what I'm going through, right? But still, end of it all is just gotta be. It happens. It's the messiness. But one thing that I like to also add, I found that some of the people become like, they walk on eggshells, not knowing what should I do. But one of the things that I found also works, like, presence is great. But part of the things is sometimes you have to cross boundaries, and one of the things is what you said, being able to say report it. But other things too is also being like, when somebody is depressed, just being there, and also not treating them as if they're sick. I found that I hate that you're sick, and there's those ones who come and say, see, you're sick. I hear you're sick. And then they'll make the same jokes. They'll do the same thing. Yeah. And you know that they're doing it because they want to keep normal, right? And that is, for me, I respect that. I respect that because it's people who know you and people who love you and who are like, it's just it's just that. It's a phase and part of it, but it's also being real, like being like developing, friendships and stuff like that. But the last thing I would say is also that it's just accepting for anyone who goes through it. It's just accepting, well, it's just part of life. It's just an episode I'll deal with, and this time might be harder than the other, but it's just going to come, and then it goes. And part of the things that I found is also knowing what works for you, right? So for me, for example, is sometimes I'm like, I need somebody to, I know whatever gets me to be depressed. And part of it is like, I feel a lot. And I'm like, it's just part of the work that I do. I have to feel. I feel a lot. So part of it is like ups. Anytime I know that I've just had a high, the next thing I know is like, I'm about to crash. Right? It's like I'm about to crash. And one of the things is I'll send long audios and I'm like, I don't need any response. Good night. Bye. That's it. Right? But I know it works for me. But it came with time, figuring out and understanding myself. And then also knowing that it's normal. It's just part of life, and you just gotta figure out, what works for you.
So, just as we conclude, it may be good just to find out maybe if there are any signs that people need to look out for. Any signs of maybe if your friend is going through any mental illness or any kind of depression, or I know there are many, but what are the signs and triggers maybe that people have that we can identify and see and say, okay, maybe it's time to be patient or to be still?
Speaking for myself, what I'm dealing with is clinical depression, and some of the things that will trigger like an episode for me is I could be having a good time and then something bad happens. Let's say at work, I mess up just a small thing and my employer, gets mad or speaks to me a certain way, and that will kind of trigger a chain reaction where I start feeling worthless, I start feeling useless, and that I can't achieve anything, that I'm, this whole mess. And, thinking that way will lead to me like waking up in the morning and feeling like I'm not contributing to anything on the planet. And I will stay. Next thing I know, it's been 2 weeks. I'm in bed. I haven't been able to eat. I haven't been able to do anything really. And it's not like I'm asleep. I'm just not having the energy or the strength to wake up. And I would say what the sign is for the people around me is I become very closed off. I will literally see phone calls and ignore them. I will have had plans with people and not go to them. So I've seen that something that helps is I have friends who have now been able to notice that. So if they call me 3 times and text me and I'm not responding, then they'll know something is wrong. And next thing I know, they just drop off at my place. And that kind of helps. So, but again, it's important to recognize that that's what I'm dealing with personally. But mental health it's a very broad spectrum, and the symptoms are always different. If it's someone with schizophrenia, for example, it might not be the inconsistency or not communicating. It might be that you're seeing that now they're thinking that everybody is out to get them. It's the paranoia. So it's important to know that even though we're going to be sharing some of the signs or some of the triggers that trigger us, it's only for us and the people dealing with the same things we're dealing with. It's not universal, and so education.
Yeah, actually, thanks for speaking on that. About experience, another trigger. I don't know if this is a sign or it's a trigger, but I think it's a trigger. Sometimes it can be hormonal, for women, especially during pregnancy, after pregnancy. And for me, which by the way, postpartum depression is very common for women who have just given birth. It's very common. And for me, while I was going through it, I had already I had already read a lot about it. I'd watched documentaries, and I'd really educated myself on what that is. So when I was going through it, I knew that it really helped me to know that this is a stage. You're going to get through this. But I still felt it though. And one of the things that it also really triggered was childhood stuff. While I was going through that's when I started battling the things that I never even thought it was going to be an issue when I'm this grown, yeah. And then another thing is also panic disorders, yeah, for moms, yeah, for the feeling of thinking you're going to die. You have this little human, and you're like, what will happen if I'm not here for them? Then it becomes a reality. You're like, actually, I'm not here. I'm dying, and then that goes on for a while. So sometimes it's very helpful for you to read about this, yeah. And I think most of the women are doing it. When they're going through pregnancy, they research and they know all about this. But it's also real, and it really happens. So one of the ways that people around them can cope is just to again, you said no advice, because that really, oh my goodness, that advice thing was just driving me nuts at that moment, especially when you're a new mom, you have a child. Everyone now in Rwanda, everyone is just telling you how best to whatever. Someone comes with a whole, anyway, story for another day, but everyone has their own opinion of how your new life is supposed to roll out. You're still dealing with that reality. So the best support system is just to be present. And actually during that time I had 2 friends who only knew. I knew that this was postpartum depression, but the only people that I opened up to are only 2 people. And the only people that I was open to, and I told them this is what is happening, and the only thing that they did was being present. Just being present. So like you said, sometimes just be present. You don't even have to say anything, but that makes that person feel like they can't, they have someone next to them. Yeah. Today's episode was quite educational and deep. And for me, especially learning all the triggers about mental health and mental illnesses, and specifically about stages of life. Maybe if you're a new mom, or which is my experience with mental health. So if you're a new mom and you feel like you're not feeling okay, just know that this too shall pass. Sometimes it goes a bit, longer, but if you feel that way, just get the help that you need. But you're not alone, and this too shall pass.
I would say for me, in terms of mental illness, I've always suffered 2, one more crazy than the other. But for me, I've always had a low level of depression. That is, I've just accepted is going to be part of my life. And one of the ways that I know is that I start feeling the things that I really love, I just feeling like I resent them and I feel like I'm down. So one of the things that I've done, at least the triggers for me, it's like an emotional high. The moment it's literally weird. Like this night, I just preached somewhere and it was like bomb. And I know the next morning, oof, I can't wait for tomorrow. I'll be down. But it's just that. It's like I know anytime I have an emotional high, the next day it's going to be very bad. So part of the things I've learned for the past 1 year, for example, is going to the gym. Waking up, going to the gym, and then working on that, or even swimming. It kind of helps, or even understanding, okay, it's just part of it. One of the things that helps for me, actually, I just love hearing a lot of sweet words. I have words of affirmation. It's like, hey, my guy, you spoke very well. Say it. It helps because then it makes you feel like it's just not the truth. And it's that bad that one of the things that I've done is anytime I get words of affirmation, I have screenshot and I have a whole album that I go back to every time I'm feeling down. And so key thing, if you ever feel like telling me good stuff, say it, please. It helps. Yeah, please do, so I can have a screenshot of it.
My friends, some of them have been dealing with mental issues, and I have been oblivious of that fact. So I feel as if today was a wake-up call for me, and I feel like I need to actually read about mental health and mental illness and actually learn what the triggers and what the signs are, so that I can look out for them for my friends, so that I can always be there for them and be still.
The other thing is the panic disorder, and part of it, it's newer for me now, but there was a period where you actually felt like you're dying all the time. And it's like, your mind plays such a trick on you, because for me, it's like, I start feeling like I'm having a heart attack, but then my heart is on the right. I'm like, my G, that's not where the heart is supposed to be. But I'm like, I'm about to die. I'm like, wrong side, that's not where the heart is. And I'll Google all these things, and part of the things too is like it plays on your mind. It's understanding that the mind, I know for me, for example, my mind is such a powerful thing. Like when it works well, I listen to myself. I'm like, boy, like there's no one who needs to tell me anything. I listen to myself and I'm like, what a wow. But when it's not functioning also, I'm like, what a wow. It's like just not. But part of it is also understanding like, okay, I know certain physical things that I do, and then sometimes it's just like even for me, it's like prayer, and even taking time. I'm like, okay, this is the time I need to listen to some worship music. Not saying just listen to it, just so that I have this assurance that this is something that is temporal. But that's what works for me.
Just let me say something really burning. So I like what you said about prayer and all of that, and going to the gym and whatever. So actually, sometimes mental illness doesn't have to be extreme. By extreme, I mean doesn't have to be diagnosed as depression or anxiety and all of that. It starts from somewhere. So as you even small things like if you're always moody, if you're angry for a whole day for something that happened the previous evening. So they're like coping skills that you can put in place. And one of them that I do, like when I'm not feeling good about something, I try and trace back. No, I'm like, wait, before I felt this way, how was I feeling? Like, okay, so this came from this and this and this, and I'm like, okay, this is good. All right, so how can I deal with this? Or sometimes if it's really bad, I just text myself. By the way, you guys, on WhatsApp you can actually text yourself. Anyway, so I text myself how I'm really feeling, and then it goes out of my system. So people should have different coping skills of just how they feel in that certain moment in the mood. Yeah.
And another thing that helps for me, it's journaling, like a real raw, like honest journaling, not like the ones where you're scared someone might find it. For me, it's like I always say, if anyone will see my journal, they will think I'm weird, because I write down every single thing and what I'm feeling and what I'm going through. And then also the other thing is, I was saying it earlier, is just I write to a friend, I'm like, I want to talk, but I don't want to talk. So I'm going to send you a 10 minutes audio. And she's like, what do you want me to do with that? Nothing. Just listen to it. Good night. Bye. But it's understanding that when emotions for me get too much, that's when the depression comes. So writing it down and then just having like a morning ritual has helped. So being able to, even having a good book for me helps. It's having a book that I know is going to touch my emotions, or it's like deep enough that it helps to deal with whatever is going through my mind.
Yeah, just be there for your friends, for your family. Do not make them feel bad because they're going through stuff. And if you're going through stuff, please seek help. Talk to someone. Go online, do research so that you can help yourself be better.
Hey, another thing, very, very important. If you feel like you're going through something, if you even have an inkling of a feeling that you might be having mental health issues, get help. Do not care about how society is going to view you. Do not care about what people are going to say. What matters most is your well-being more than what people think of you. So if you feel like that, there are a few places where you could get the help that you deserve and that you need. Lighthouse Rwanda, please Google that. Lighthouse Rwanda, they work in Kibagabaga. There's also Solid Minds. There's also Sana Initiative. So those are a few places where you could go to. There are also doctors, psychiatrists, and psychologists at Trois Faisal that you could go to, and Kashi, and Mutuelle de Santé covers your fees for that.
Thank you so much for watching. We've reached the end of our conversation. Just to let you know that these were our experiences, these were our opinions, what we have shared. We are not experts, but we're just sharing our journey so that you don't feel alone. And it's also good to, as you saw, we have common traits that we deal with. It's good to know that you're not alone dealing with mental illness. So if you feel any certain way, any of the symptoms or the signs we have mentioned, if you feel them, please talk to a friend. Otherwise, you can continue chatting with us on Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram at 250 Chat, and follow us on Prime TV at every Monday 7:30. Thank you.